the City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, August 22nd of 2023. And I believe Tammy, our Deputy Clerk, is going to do the roll call tonight.
Can you hear me, Tim?
We can. Thanks for being here.
Great, thank you. Butler?
Here.
Caravello? Here. Hiley?
Here.
Hirsch?
Here.
Jensen?
Here.
Legaki?
She's absent and excused.
Thank you. Majewski?
Here.
Payton?
Here.
Reeves?
Here.
Sherlucky?
Here.
Schumacher?
Here.
Wozniak Scanlon? Here. We have 11 alders present and 1 absent and excused.
All right. Thank you, Tammy. Next item, we are certified of compliance with open meeting laws, and there is nobody signed up for public comment. So that takes us to communications and presentations. Any communications from alders?
I just want to remind people that are on the CIP meeting agenda that we have another meeting, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. 7? 7 p.m. in this room. So be here or be square.
Any other communications? Director Shield?
I was just going to give us a quick update on some of the street projects. Yesterday, they put binder and surface paving on Devonshire between Chapin and Jackson Street. It was a little disruptive during the high school events over Friday night, but it was passable. But that's open to traffic again now, and they'll be striping the crosswalks in the coming days on that street. Jackson Street, on the west end of Jackson Street near 51 and Silverado. My recommendation is if you don't need to be in that area, try to stay away for a little while. We're doing a force main in that area as well as reconstruction of the street from essentially Silverado out to Highway 51. So business access is available, but if you don't need to be in that area, recommend you stay away if you can. Other areas where we have street work going on right now is Falland and Sunt. They're doing curb and gutter and sidewalk spot replacement right now and preparing for pulverization and repaving of those streets to occur in the next month or two. That's all.
All right, thank you. Any other communications? Okay, hearing none. We'll go on to the consent agenda. It looks like there's just some minutes in there, so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Jensen. Is there a second? Second by Reeves. Would anybody like anything acted on separately? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Okay. Alder Legaki is present. Tammy? Next item is R128 of 2023, and this is coming from the Finance Committee, Alderperson Schumacher.
Mayor, you got one thing off of the, it's not on the agenda, but it's included in the attachment here. You've got an 025 2023 as an item 6. Is that something that would be acted on, or is it because it's off agenda?
I think that's it. What is that?
I think it's
at the end.
I think it's not necessary to act on the one that's under that item 6.
Got it.
There's a addition at the bottom of the agenda for an amendment to the annexation ordinance.
Oh, okay, got it. All right. Just wanted to make sure we weren't missing anything in there. All right, so R128 2023 is a resolution to amend the 2023 adopted budget for closure of Fund 412 equipment replacement. So moved.
Second.
Second by Alder Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher.
This is things that Dave's been working on to kind of consolidate some of the fund numbers that we have in there. They're not going away, they're being reclassified under different fund numbers. So the goal of this is to ultimately make the accounting and auditing a little bit cleaner.
All right, anything you want to add, Director Alinger?
No, I don't think so. Brett answered it, or succinctly stated what we're trying to do.
All right, any questions or comments? President Hirsch?
I have a question. So you're closing this fund just because we have extra money left in it? So are we expecting that any equipment replacement is all CIP borrowing then?
Well, what we've done in the past is the rent of the One Community Bank, Stoughton Utilities, EMS, and the senior center was going into this fund, and we were not issuing debt for that, and it's been building up a fund balance of several $100,000. When we created or amended the 23 budget for the market adjustments for all the employees, I used approximately 70% of that revenue to help pay as continuing revenue for the employees' market increases. I'm planning on getting rid of the other 30% in the 24 budget to hopefully get the employees a decent raise again. So in effect, what we're doing is we're saying that we know that we can issue as much debt as we want to, and I'm trying to use all the available revenues that I can for operations because departments are hurting. They need extra people and so forth.
That's what I thought. So it is, borrowing as opposed to saving.
Correct.
Are we going to be running into a problem going forward for paying the employees if we totally zero out this?
No, the revenues that I used in the 23 budget with the market adjustments were sustainable revenues. They occur every year, so I did not want to get into anything where I'd be saying, oh, you remember the raise we gave you last year, we're taking it back. So that would be the worst thing that we could do to the employees. So I made sure that when I proposed those budget amendments, it was sustainable going forward.
Okay.
So really, the only revenue that we're losing is the revenue that we once had for the tenants of the annex at the senior center. And since those tenants have relocated and we've expanded the senior center, we're no longer collecting those rents. But we'll still be getting rents from One Community Bank and utilities and EMS. But if
Correct.
something changed there, we'd have to reduce our budget by that amount of rent.
Correct.
Now, isn't One Community Bank rent ending in a certain period of time? I thought it was only for like 5 or 6 years.
It's a 5-year lease with 2 optional 5-year extensions. The first lease ends at the end of 23. One of the former vice presidents at One Community Bank had indicated to me that they had planned on continuing for the next 5 years. And One Community Bank has already approached the mayor about meeting in, I believe it was September, to discuss that lease.
So if they do pull out at the end of this year, and now we don't have the senior center revenue, and now we only have EMS revenue, how is that sustainable?
You're exactly correct. If they pull out, that's an issue, but conversely, we gain space in City Hall, which we need for other things, for storage and so forth. But yes, you're right. If One Community Bank pulls out, I've got to rethink, move some things around to get the 24 budget in line. But when we were implementing GASB 87, The former vice president had said, yep, we're planning on continuing it, so I was going under that knowledge there. I think that, without trying to talk, out of turn, I'm assuming that One Community Bank does want to continue renting or leasing the facility. If they weren't interested, they would have probably given us notice saying, we're not going to do it as of January.
But we still have to make up the senior center lost revenue.
Well, yes and no. That revenue stopped in calendar year '22, and when Jamin was creating the 22 budget, he was already planning on that because we had told the tenants we were going out. So it's been phased out already in the budget, and we're not talking much anymore. I
Okay,
think
I'm just making sure that we don't get to that point where we're scrambling to pay our employees.
Absolutely.
And so we initially had 3 different sources of revenue, now we're down to 2, and then in 5 years we might be down to 1.
You're
So-
correct. We have to make adjustments going forward. If one community says, no, we don't want to continue, I'll have to make some changes in how I'm setting up the '24 budget. But I'm sure as heck not going to be recommending to Tim in the budget that we adjust employee pay down.
No, I would never suggest that. I just want everybody to be aware that it's a fluid situation still.
Correct. The entire thing is fluid for all sorts of revenue sources. Creating the budget is not like throwing a couple set of dice and asking the magic 8-ball what to do next.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item is R129, and that one comes from finance.
Right, R129 of 2023 is a resolution to amend the 2023 adopted budget for closure of Fund 411 building maintenance. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Hirsch. Alderperson Schumacher.
This is a lot of the same reasoning for the one that we just voted on.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
So just to be clear for the new people, the reasoning is that we can borrow for maintenance as opposed to saving for it.
Right, and then we don't need a policy since we're not going to be
This
using
one
that
isn't a
fund anymore.
policy yet, Mayor.
Oh.
Policy's next one.
Oh,
But this one
ahead
is,
of myself.
it just is consolidating or as Dave put it in the finance committee, we don't have all the cookie jars all over the place. We're just putting it into one bigger cookie jar.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Now we're at the policy.
Yep.
Alderperson Schumacher.
This is R130, 2023, a resolution to repeal the city policy for scheduled building maintenance fund. So moved.
For a second.
Second.
Second by Alder Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher.
As it says, this was the policy that had established the building maintenance fund, and with no building maintenance fund, we have no need for the policy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just have a question. Years ago, we had maintenance fund money set aside for the powerhouse to make sure that that doesn't go, like, for the roof and for, was it tuck pointing and other things, so it doesn't fall into the river and doesn't, deteriorate? Is that still possible? Are we still making sure that that building is kept up? Because we did set aside money for that to be maintained, so it doesn't turn into like one of the highway trailer buildings, especially because there seems to be a lot of interest in that building lately?
I do not know of anything in the general ledger about monies put aside. I can certainly look in the history to see if I can find it. Council can, even if we can't locate it or it was 7 years ago, whatever the case is, council can always, at one point say, we are going to assign $250,000 or whatever for that building or whatever. Council can do whatever they want at any time.
Yeah, there was at one point a vote
$50,000.
to include that. And then the question is was that money ever borrowed? And I don't know that answer. Maybe Tom would remember. And then when you're done, then Rodney can maybe give you an update on the building itself.
Don't know if it was assigned, but I don't know if it was actually borrowed.
Yeah, well, if the money was in this fund, there might not have been a need to borrow. So the question is
Well, and
we'll have
if
to dig
we,
into it.
if we did borrow for it, it's past the 3 years, so it would have had to get transferred to the debt service fund to pay principal and interest if funds were borrowed for that purpose and not spent.
I don't believe the money was actually borrowed. There's really been a challenge trying to figure out timing of what should be done to that building and how to approach it. As the Brink project was maturing and materializing, there was renewed interest in repurposing of that building as part of that riverfront redevelopment effort. And so at that point, I think there's been a continued hope that would be taken on by some either organization and or the city to figure out exactly how that building would be repurposed. So we do have to renew our position on how we want to proceed with that building in light of the changes that may or may not be happening down in the area.
So would that fall under RDA or plan or what committee, because it needs to be, I think, looked at?
It's a city-owned building. I don't think the RDA would play a role in it.
So that'd be up to you to.
It's a landmark building. It's a landmark status building.
Right.
But it's within the city's inventory of buildings and would be part of the city's proper policy to go through that.
And just FYI for all the council members, there is another capstone, UW-Madison student capstone project that will be looking at that building to see what possible uses can be made from that. And I think that's happening this fall, and then there'll be a presentation after they're done.
Great.
So there is interest, not just capstone, but we're trying to garner more interest with other possibilities for that building. So I just want to make sure it doesn't crumble into the river or have a major roof leak prior to there's possibilities for that building.
All right. Oh, go ahead.
On that note, what you just said, we'll back up, and we had that same conversation, 7 years ago? And the reason that money went into that fund was because the roof was failing. The roof, and money was set aside to have that roof stabilized and or reshingled with the correct roofing material. 7 years later, we still have nothing, and we are going the direction of the highway trailer building.
Well, I'm not sure if the roof is failing, but I think that between now
Why
and
do you think we put $50,000 aside as a council to?
Well, I think we
for
put
our
the money
health?
aside in case it failed. I don't.
No, it wasn't in case it failed.
Oh.
It was leaking and it was having problems.
I've been in the building, so
And you are an expert at that, yes.
Well, I don't think it's leaking. I would notice that. But anyway, 50,000 wouldn't cover it now anyway. So I think that when they do the capstone, maybe part of their assessment will be the condition of the building, and if we need to do something with it, we certainly will come back and communicate that.
We definitely need to do something with the building because
Well, it's always kind of the chicken and the egg, you know, we want to protect the building.
I
But
understand.
if we were to sell the building and a private developer bought it, they would be able to do the repairs and get a 30 to 40% tax credit for historical preservation. So we've kind of waffled on, should we do it or not? And I don't know, I guess we need to find out if it's risen to the level that it needs to be done and we shouldn't wait any longer. So I think that's a legitimate question that we should get answered.
Because the conversation we're having now, we can rewind 7 years ago.
I
and
remember
get
I
the
was on
exact
council,
same-
I was in one of these seats.
So with that
Uh-huh.
said, how do we make it happen? Do we give direction to Rodney in a written form? Does it have to go to a certain subcommittee? I mean, I know Rodney is looking for direction and I just want to make sure that it goes to the right committee or whatever, so Rodney doesn't have to wait and he has the direction of the the council or a committee.
Tomorrow night, you'll have the opportunity to add it right to my CIP if you'd like to. How's that? We're gonna be talking about the CIP related to building stuff, so we can have that discussion, and if it's warranted to add it for a particular year, even next year, we can do so.
But the question is, we already set aside money, so it should be there that we don't have to borrow for it.
It may have been placed in a CIP, but it might not have been borrowed for. In other words, the CIP changes every year, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was put in for the next year to be borrowed for. So it may not have transferred into a budget, an expenditure budget.
Okay.
And unless you actually issue debt for something in the CIP, the Wisconsin statutes say that item is no longer there. If you want it in the subsequent year budget, you have to add it to the budget. Hence, we're at Rodney's discussion, add it to CIP tomorrow evening if you'd like to.
Which we will, but I guess we're talking about maintenance, building maintenance fund, and there was a certain amount of money in that fund, and I thought that's where the money was. That's where I'm a little concerned.
Well, and like I said earlier, I'm not aware of anything in the accounting showing that. I will have to look back, see if I can find something in CIP, find a resolution or whatever, but if we are talking about something 7 years ago, you're talking 2, maybe 3 finance directors ago. Things do get lost in the shuffle over time.
All right,
Thanks,
so
Dave.
we'll do some digging on that, and hopefully we can report out tomorrow night our findings.
Thank you.
Any other, sure, go ahead. Oh, somebody online?
Yes,
Oh, hey Jane, how are you?
yes, hello. So I have a question about my vote on the prior document that we just had up. I am hesitant to want to close that fund totally if we have monies set aside for this project before we even know the history of this issue. And I wasn't on council 7 years ago, I'm not aware of this. So I would like to ask that this come back for discussion at our next council meeting. And even if it goes to CIP tomorrow, or I would like to know where the monies are for that. The powerhouse is a very important building, and I'm hearing differing stories about how it's aging and its problems, and I think we should have a baseline and know where we're at. I don't think we do. So at best, I'd ask that this be placed on the agenda for the next council meeting, for
So
us to revisit where we're at.
So I think what you would do is you do a motion of reconsideration.
Okay.
Is the process to do that, and then if that passes, then you would postpone the vote, and then you would also postpone the vote on the policy. I think that's probably one way of doing it. There may be others.
Yeah, do we have a motion that's already on the floor for this current resolution?
We do.
'Cause I-
So somebody, on this one here for the policy, if you want to go back, you should probably postpone this vote and then decide what you want to do on the other one.
Yes, I agree. I think we need to take care of the motion that's currently before us, and then we can do the reconsideration, if that's the way that the council wants to move.
That sounds good.
So Jean, you gonna make that motion?
I am not certain what I should make, only because this is the policy, right?
Yeah, you'd have to postpone the policy first, because that's the motion on the floor. And if that was successful, then you could go back and reconsider the previous item.
I'd like to go forward and request that we postpone this to the next council meeting, given the discussion we've had.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Peyton. Okay, is there any more discussion on your end, Alder Lagaki?
Thank you, no.
Anybody else?
Just a question.
Sure.
Just for clarification, could you remind us, since we already approved closing the fund, how does that?
So
what would
if
happen?
you choose to postpone this, somebody can make a motion to reconsider that previous item.
Okay,
And at that point, if that's approved, then you would go and postpone that.
thank you.
So it really would undo the vote, basically. Is that how you would understand it?
Yes, that was my understanding. So we
Okay.
would have to have 3 votes, one to postpone this, one to open the other one up for reconsideration, and another one to postpone.
You read
May
the
I
Robert's
add
rules?
something?
Sure, go ahead.
The two resolutions basically say the activity in 412 and 410, or excuse me, 412 and 411 will now be recorded in 410, and any fund balance in 412 and 411 are transferred to 410. This is just an accounting transaction. You can, of course, do it if you want to, but you're not losing the fund balance. Let's assume for a minute that we do have the 80,000 and we find the documentation. Now the fund balance, instead of being in 411, will be in 410.
And would we have easy access and be able to go forward and discuss it, what we're gonna do and add?
Yep. You're welcome to do what you want, but this is basically an accounting exercise that I'm asking you to do.
So it's an accounting exercise, but yet I thought that the money was earmarked for the powerhouse, and so if you're now just lumping it in, it's no longer earmarked. Is that correct?
Again, this is the first I'm hearing that we had this money out there. I have to investigate it. But again, if we did not issue debt, then there's no budgeted monies for that. You're just saying, here, it's off in Never Never Land.
No, what I'm saying is that we had a building maintenance fund that we accumulated X number of money in, and that part of that fund money was earmarked for the powerhouse.
Yes, but an earmark doesn't do anything because everything lapses at year end to essentially the unassigned fund balance for that fund. The committee or the council has to amend the budget every year to actually spend that money. So even if I find that money there, council's still got to take some action to do it. We can certainly, not make the changes if you want to. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm just saying, even if we leave funds 411 and 412 untouched, we don't close the funds at all, we've still got the same issue. We've got to find out what happened to that money, and then council would have to actually make a motion to amend the budget to spend that money. So whether you want to close the funds or not, we don't have to if you don't want to, but that doesn't change the fact that I've got to track the money down.
I'm not really sure who was first here.
It's DJ, then Greg.
We'll start over here and we'll just work our way around.
Yeah, probably a simple question. On the current resolution, the motion, this is marked as time sensitive. What would be the impact of delaying it to the next?
To be honest, there's no time sensitive here other than the fact that I was working on 5 committee agendas when I was preparing all this. I didn't want to have to try and remember which I had to carry forward to the next meeting, which I didn't have to.
All right. Alderperson Payton.
It sounds like to me, whichever action that we choose, Dave's gonna have to do the same thing. We're still gonna have to investigate where the money is, and it doesn't matter if it's in 410 or if it's in 411, because it will be accounted in the paper trail somewhere that said council did set this aside at this point into the building fund. The building fund, which technically may or may not still have that fund in it, it's still noted, so then we can still take action on that note for the future budget, but it's involved in a different budget line item, but it's documented. So my understanding is maybe we don't need, as I now understand it, we may not need to hold off. We can proceed while still doing our due diligence to find that money and then use it out of 410, or acknowledge it in the 410 fund to then use for it to return.
Yeah. Okay. Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was just going to say, it creates a clean slate. The money is still there, as Dave was saying. It doesn't make sense to do this. I mean, if there's, once we find out about if there was something earmarked or not, that would then end up being in, we could then end up put that into CIP, which is what Rodney was talking about. So I just think to try and table this or delay it is just kind of a waste of time.
If I could, I'll withdraw my second, considering how I feel about the
it's
motion
on-
now.
The motion belongs on the floor.
Sure. Okay.
So we'll have to vote on it. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? So the motion on the floor is to postpone it. All in favor, say aye. And those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, so the motion to postpone fails. So it takes us back to the motion to basically approve the policy, to eliminate the policy. That's how I would understand it. Any questions on that?
And this topic will be a follow-up at our next council meeting?
Yes,
Excellent, and thank you.
sure, thank you. Yeah, probably talk about it at CIP and then it'll come back if we have the answer and a recommendation. And you might note that, so, Dave has zeroed out the books at the end of the year and through the budget amendment process. That's something that previous finance directors, Dave, hadn't done that. So that kind of adds a layer of complexity here. The way he's doing it is the way it's supposed to be done. So in the past, we would have rolled over the money. Under the statute, as I understand it, you're not really supposed to roll over the money. You're supposed to zero it out and then amend the budget accordingly and then rebudget it for the following year. So we've changed our practice through all this, which has added a layer of complexity to the kind of the history of this particular one, and I'm sure others, but we'll get to the bottom of it. Go ahead.
Just one additional thing that might be helpful, because I asked the very same question when we just had finance, because my concern was, is this going to end up buried somewhere where we can't find the funds? And, for those of us that get the financial reports all the time, it might be a little bit clearer. So I was just going to suggest that maybe if it's brought back to the next meeting, that Dave could bring, a report or two that just kind of shows, like, here's where you find these sorts of things. So it's here, it's just got a new number. And I think that might help bring some clarity to it, just a suggestion anyway.
All right, thank you. Alderperson Majewski.
Not to get off the subject, and I understand that Dave is really busy, and I really appreciate everything that he does. and not off subject, but the use of time-sensitive items is not to be taken lightly. I don't appreciate that because Dave has got a complex issue and he wants to keep it straight in his head, that it be brought forth to this council in a manner in which it's brought forth. Did not give anybody a chance to look at this because it was time-sensitive. And we are now having this meeting on the floor instead of places where we should have had it beforehand. And that's all I'm going to say about it. And so in the future, I would like to see time-sensitive actually mean time-sensitive.
Sure. Yeah, and I would just add, if something crosses your mind before the meeting, don't be afraid to reach out to Dave or myself in advance so we can provide clarity at the meeting. You know, it's awkward to try to do this on the floor, obviously, for all of us, so.
So 11 people
I think-
needed clarity today.
What's that?
11 of us needed clarity today.
All right. Enough on this one. You ready to vote? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. All right. Good discussion. Item number 10 is coming from finance, believe it or not.
R-131 of 2023 is a resolution to amend city policy regarding funding for vested sick leave payouts. So moved.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Alderperson Reeves? Okay, go ahead, Alderperson Schumacher.
Last year, we started getting monies that were set aside in the sick leave payout for retirements and such. This is an extension of that to get the funding of that, or the balance of that funding up to where we think we can handle any retirement that's coming about. This is coming from the unassigned fund balance, transferring into this lump of money for these payouts.
All right.
That
Thank
one
you.
wasn't as clear as other ones.
Anything you want to add, Dave?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Just a question.
Alderperson Sherlucky.
So it's not that this money will be used, it's just prepping in case
Yeah.
we need it.
And this is, it's adding into it, I think last year, Dave, you set the value at, we had 850,000 or something like that, to cover over the liabilities and that to pay out. So this is in addition to that, because we had 4 fairly significant retirements and payouts on that one. And then there's another mechanism in here so that we'll budget for being able to continue to fund this year over year, so we don't like have to put a large chunk in at one point in time. Oh, and the benefit on it is, I'm just finally looking at my notes here. The benefit on it is that when departments do have retirements, that they can end up filling that space or filling that position right away, rather than practices that we've had in the past of lagging on filling them just so that we could afford the department to pay it out.
President Hirsch.
So this is not the retirement fund, this is their sick leave, so they can accumulate sick leave. Is there a cap on sick leave that they can accumulate? Or if they never take sick leave, it's just, could be 10 years of sick leave accumulated?
Yes, there is a cap. General employees have one cap. The sworn officers who are part of the union have a different cap. But yes, it is capped at a certain number of hours for individuals. And depending upon if they do not take any sick hours that year, there is going to increase. If they have a catastrophic illness for themselves, their family, and they're off for 3 months, their balance will decrease quite a bit. So it's always a calculation every year to see where we're at.
Do you know what the cap is? Is it like 5 years is there a cap, or is it 10 years?
I do not know off the top of my head.
It's number of hours, actually. It's capped. Lisa, help me out here.
I don't remember. I would suggest. We probably have to ask AJ to be.
It's in the policy manual.
So, yeah, it's in the policy manual, and it was changed about three years ago,
What about,
just before, about a year before COVID stuff.
To increase it, decrease it?
yeah?
We just capped it before it was unlimited, and
Okay.
it was like,
It might have been longer than that even.
yeah,
I don't know if I was mayor when that changed.
I think, yeah, I think you are correct, Mayor, that you were sitting on the committee with me when we voted on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to the motion? That motion carries. All right, it looks like the next three are coming from the Plan Commission, which would be Alderperson Caravello. The first one is ordinance 26. Do you want me to put it up, Rodney, or do you want to run the screen for these?
Put it up.
All right. So, Alderperson Caravello, you can introduce the first one while he's putting that up.
Thank you. This is first reading of ordinance 26 of 2023, an ordinance amending the zoning classification of certified survey map lots 1, 2, 3, and outlot 1 at the southeast corner of US Highway 51 and County Highway B in the city of Stoughton, Wisconsin.
It's a first reading, so I don't know if you want to elaborate or if you want to turn it over to Director Shield.
I think I'll just let Rodney take it away.
You'll recognize this area as the area that's being planned for the Stoughton Trailers holding area, and their manufacturing, not their manufacturing facility, their headquarters is planned for what's shown as Lot 1 on the CSM. Lot 3, the larger Lot 3 and Lot 2, we'd anticipate to be further subdivided at a future date, but at this point, this provides an opportunity to make the street improvements necessary to facilitate Phase 1, which would be little Lot 1, then the headquarters. This is really just the rezoning aspect of it, and as summarized in the description by Alder Caravello and is shown on the screen, the proposed rezoning or the zoning designation is attached to the illustration as shown.
Any questions or comments on this one?
As part of the CSM, as part of the rezoning at the CSM will be acted on at the same night for this, at the second reading.
And you might recall we do the two readings on the ordinances, so this one would be back at the next city council meeting. All right, next item, Alderperson Caravello.
This again is a first reading. This is ordinance 27 of 2023, plan development, general development plan for 211 South Water Street, Stoughton, Wisconsin. And this, the folks are interested in converting this building into 18 residential apartment units.
Go ahead, Director Shield.
Yeah, the plan development process is being utilized in this situation to allow for first floor residential to be within the front part of the ground floor of the building, and that is not allowed under the traditional zoning, so it's going through the plan development process. The illustrations and the discussion related to this site have been shared in the past, but that's really the reason it's being submitted for a plan development rezoning. This is the first reading.
They've been at the Plan Commission, I think, 3 times now. One of the things that we're going to discuss at Public Safety tomorrow night, we're not going to make a decision, but we're going to discuss is parking. That was something that came up as part of the discussion because there's really very limited options for on-site parking. So you might hear a little bit more about that, or if you're on the committee, we'll introduce that tomorrow night, some findings and some options that ultimately may come here. President Hirsch.
Yeah, along with that, Rodney, maybe you can help me out. When it's 1 bedroom or a studio versus 2 bedroom and 3 bedroom, how many parking spots are there usually? I mean, if it's 1 bedroom, I could see 1 parking spot, but I know if you got 2 and 3, it goes up.
Yeah, I believe it goes from between 1, and if you get to a 3-bedroom, I think the ordinance might identify 2 stalls in other zoning districts. In the central business district, there's none required.
There's no requirement
There's
for
no
any
parking requirements for on-site parking.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments on this one tonight?
Mayor,
Go ahead, Alderperson Legaki.
are the developers of this project present or going to be there next week?
They plan to attend the second reading session.
Excellent. I was pleasantly, when I was reading this in the packet, I was happy to see those rent prices as we struggle with affordable housing, and I would love to hear more of their information on that, how they came to this. Perhaps not having parking costs is part of it, but I just wanted to share that. I wanted to hear from them about the prices. I see that rent prices have been crazy high throughout Dane County, and I'm grateful to see that.
Okay, I'm sure they'll be anxious to share their story with you and the rest of the council. Any other questions? Okay, this one will be back in a couple weeks. And then the third item is also a first reading. Alderperson Caravello.
Yep, this is, as you said, a first reading of ordinance 28, 2023, an ordinance amending the zoning classification at 2605 Cromwell Court and the rear portion of 2500 Jackson Street in the city of Stoughton, Wisconsin.
All right, Director Shield.
The council's seen iterations of this in the past. They've submitted a request utilizing what we call essentially our standard zoning classifications. MR24 allows for a density up to 24 units per acre. They're proposing the traditional MR24 standard as opposed to the plan development process, which had previously been issued. This rendering just provides an illustration view of what it may look like as part of their proposal. The applicants are here tonight. If there's any questions or if they'd like to make any additional comments, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that they are proposing to use the MR24 zoning as opposed to a plan development process. So they're not looking for exceptions to the zoning district standards.
Can you just explain what the difference is between the plan development and MR24? I mean, we have a lot of new council people here. They're like, and me too. I mean, just because this is, I don't remember this coming up before, that somebody has changed things.
Yeah, so the plan development district is a zoning classification that allows for the standards to be established as part of that application. In other words, you take a look at what the underlying or nearby zoning might be accommodated in our other districts. In this case, you'd look at a multifamily district standard. In some cases, you might not be able to meet the setbacks or the area requirements or some of those other aspects, but they might be able to capitalize on better building materials or aesthetics or landscaping. So that plan development process can be used to fulfill an overall project by maybe giving some and taking some. In other words, providing some relief on some of the standards by utilizing the exception process through the plan development process. In exchange, you might find yourself with more landscaping or open space or some other feature to help offset that change. The MR24, I should highlight, I'm sorry for the new members. MR24 is a multifamily residential district. The 24 represents that it would allow by right up to 24 units per acre of residential. We have an MR10 district, which is up to 10 units per acre. The north part of this parcel actually is currently zoned MR10 and would allow for by right up to 10 units per acre. They're working to combine this existing property to the north with the southern part of another parcel behind, or a piece of the land behind the True by Hilton, and combine those into one parcel and utilize the MR24 zoning to create this multifamily development on this site. This is a site that's, the public frontage is off of Cromwell Court. Cromwell Court is a platted cul-de-sac, a public cul-de-sac. I know there's been some comments about kind of the irregular shape of that. The irregular shape of that's not being created as part of this this zoning proposal or this plat proposal. The cul-de-sac was already platted. The lands to the north on the screen shown on the left side of the screen actually is a large stormwater basin area. So there would always be a driveway off of the Cromwell Court into this parcel no matter what was placed here. The cul-de-sac actually provides for a good public turnaround. So if somebody that's not destined for the multifamily in this case, or even the single family area, they could get into that area, turn around on a public cul-de-sac, as opposed to having to enter into private property and do a turnaround. So the street layout has been established by plat. They're looking to utilize the portion of the property to increase the density, if you will, from MR10 to an MR24 standard.
With that said, can you, and maybe they can come up, so from the last proposal to this proposal, how many units has it increased?
I don't think it's actually increased. I think it's actually decreased. If I'm remembering right, it went from 112 to...
We have the Connors here.
There we go.
Yeah, Connor with a K and a Connor and a C.
You stole my intro, that's what I was going to say. So I'm Connor with a C, that's Connor with a K. Thanks for having us. Going off of that question, the maximum density in the general development plan was 117 units. Right now on the plan, we're showing 96, and we think we'll fall between the 90 and 96 range. So we won't be able to accomplish or get to that 117 as a maximum before. And why did we start with the GDP? It really was because of timing. In early April, we didn't have enough information to know that without the landscape reduction, or by requesting the landscape reduction and setback reduction, were we able to accomplish the same project? But by refining the building articulation, by refining the footprint, reducing kind of unnecessary hardscape, we're able to increase the green space and get to the number where we are today. So the overall density we won't be able to get to that 117 as the GDP would have had.
Are you still looking at the same rental rates, the more affordable? Are you looking to do workforce housing, any of that?
So right now the plan is to have it be market rate. Establishing the zoning doesn't preclude that though. Our plan is to move forward and develop this ourselves, but that doesn't mean someone couldn't make an offer to buy it and put something there. But right now we're looking at rents in from the 1,000 for a studio, 1,100 for a 1-bedroom and then 1,400 for 2 bedrooms, which is in line with current rental rates. So if we're able to model this project currently with matching existing rates, that serves us really well come next year when rental rates will likely have increased another rental cycle.
Other person, Reese?
And I did not see any requests for exceptions this time around. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there are no exceptions. This is a rezoning to the MR24, which wouldn't allow exceptions. If the plan development process was used, there was an opportunity to evaluate exceptions, but they're not requesting any as part of this application.
Any other questions or comments on this? President Hirsch?
Just if we, I just want to be clear, if we approve the zoning reclassification, doesn't necessarily mean that we're approving the development. We're only approving the zoning, correct?
You're approving the zoning with the anticipated site plan to follow later related to how to build out that zoning project on this parcel.
And just to be clear, the site plan would go to the Plan Commission?
That's correct.
And then from here?
No, the site plan, the Plan Commission has a statutorial jurisdiction to approve that.
With that, though, one of the key things we wanted to have tonight was a discussion about the project to see if the site plan doesn't have the opportunity to come to council, then what would council like to see? We've tried to incorporate as much feedback as possible so far by meeting conventional zoning, but if there's things that we really want to see in this project tonight, especially before the second reading, is a good time to discuss that. And one topic in particular that we had kind of focused on was sustainability, because that came up at a previous meeting. We've been able to work with our architect and our project team since the last meeting to refine our plans, and some maybes that we had in the previous plan have been solidified. We're incorporating energy efficient HVAC systems, windows, roofing, all of those making up 35% of energy consumption for a site. So those are important to get right. Water fixtures will use low water features. We're trying to focus irrigation only on key areas of the site. The site will be equipped with electrical vehicle charging stations. That's a request by our project manager. They're seeing that being more and more important. We'll be incorporating natural plantings in as many areas as possible in lieu of mowing, which requires weekly maintenance. And we have community gardens as well for the enjoyment of residents. So those are a couple of the sustainability items. I know that was something that came up last time as being important. So with that, we want to see what other things can we have on the project to make sure that we're creating a successful project. So when a site plan does come forward, Plan Commission knows that we've had your feedback.
Thank you very much for taking our comments into consideration. That makes me personally happy. The only thing that I would add is if you could make your roofs solar ready. And so because there is a lot of opportunity for businesses to actually take advantage of putting solar on right now in the next 5 years, I would encourage you to look at those because there are great cost savings. And I think a lot of people moving to Stoughton have that kind of mindset, so it's just good practice.
Yeah.
So I would you don't have to put them on, but get them ready so if you do get big grants or tax incentives that you're able to jump on that.
Yeah, that's another good one. We actually talked to Stoughton Utilities. Solar is a tough one when it comes to multifamily just because of metering and things like that, but solar ready can get us there that way. We're ready for it when it becomes more of a common thing in multifamily.
Alderperson Reeves.
I think you mentioned maybe using native plantings, but I would definitely encourage that. I mean, they grow better long-term because we've seen enough, plants that go in and they're really not meant to be here, so they look terrible and they die in a short amount of time. So if you can work with somebody who actually knows about native plantings that are going to survive long-term, obviously it's better for the environment, but they also, last longer down the road. So that would be something that I would really like to see if you can do that wherever possible, rather than the Home Depot variety. So.
Right. Could you scroll to the next image, actually? With that, there's actually a good opportunity on this site on the far left side of the property. This would be the east side, closer to 51 and some of the commercial properties. We're planning to do landscape screenings there, but there's also a drainage easement. So that drainage easement is one example where leaving it as native vegetation makes a ton of sense. It helps screen things better and slow water down before it gets to the stormwater basin. So that's one area in particular where we're hoping to incorporate that.
Alderperson Sherlucky.
Just a clarification question on this. In Exhibit D, you have community gardens listed, which is great, but you also have it listed on the easternmost building, 8 and 8.
Oh,
is that going to be on the roof, or is that?
No, sorry, that was just a stray label.
Okay.
I caught that label probably a week ago. I'm like, oh, so it is on the ground on the left side of the project site. So sorry about that one.
No worries.
But
I just want to make sure.
All right. Alderperson Reeves, did you have something else? Oh, okay. Oh.
that would be great. Yes.
It would be great. I was just because I couldn't see where you put all these sustainability issues in. I would just make sure instead of, the last time you kept on saying may, I would change it to will. Because may is wishy-washy and non-committal. And the only other thing that I would recommend, I mean, I can't see your sidewalks, but if you're really truly making it a walkable community, make sure your sidewalks are connected to the sidewalks going to all the commercial district and stuff like that.
Sure.
So make it truly walkable to that with appropriate sidewalks connecting the buildings to the other sidewalks.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other feedback for these guys? Like I always say, if you wake up in a cold sweat tonight, don't be afraid to send us an email. We'll pass it on to these guys. Between now and the next meeting, if you have any additional thoughts, let us know. Otherwise, you'll see this in a couple weeks. And then from there, ultimately we go back to the Plan Commission if it goes through. Okay, thanks for being here.
Thank you all.
All right, next item is also from the Plan Commission. This is in what we call an ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, and Alderperson Caravello.
Resolution 132 of 2023, approving an extraterritorial jurisdictional land division for property located at 2355 Leslie Road, Town of Dunkirk, Dane County, Wisconsin, and I so move.
Is there a second? Second by Alder Mieski, Alderperson Caravello.
And this is, we've done a bunch of these in the past, and this one is relatively straightforward again, separating the existing residents from the surrounding agricultural land.
Anything you want to add, Director Shield?
Maybe for the benefit of the newer alders, the city has jurisdiction to review subdivisions and some land divisions within 1.5 miles of our boundaries. This is actually on the far reaches of our 1.5 mile control. So they have to submit a CSM and/or a subdivision plat for any land divisions within that district or within that distance. We pay particular attention to land divisions and subdivisions that would be proposed closer to our boundaries. When they're farther out away from our boundaries, we're not as concerned about orderly development as we continue to grow. We really want to preserve and protect the borders as they are very close to the city. This one's well beyond our planning boundaries, and therefore we would support this split as presented. You'll recognize the ordinance or the resolution also has language that really defers the approval to the town of Dunkirk and the county. In other words, those two agencies really have authority to approve it. We're just not objecting to it.
Yeah, and I would just add, the 1.5 miles comes from the fact that we're designated as a 4th-class city. If we were a 3rd-class city, then I think it would be 3 miles. But there's pros and cons of being a 3rd class, and we've chosen to stay as a 4th. We've had that conversation within the last year or so, and decided to stay with it. And then typically these divisions are for sheds or maybe a house for mom and dad on the farm, and mother-in-law suite and those types of developments. But usually, we don't have any long-term issues. I think we're somewhat limited on, what we can even really do.
Yes, your extraterritorial subdivision authority is, I guess, convoluted, but just because oftentimes you would use it as like a lot size regulation, but there's conflicting case law out there about what lot sizes are allowable or not, and what is actually zoning regulation. So I don't need to get into all of that, but it's you at least have the authority to review these, and like Rodney said, this is more of a long-term planning exercise, and since this is on the very edge of your current extraterritorial jurisdiction, there aren't those immediate concerns about how it's going to affect the orderly growth of the city.
I just want to say that we're a first-class city, but we may be, classifying as a 4th class. I just,
No, I think the only one that's actually classified as a first class is Milwaukee, I think. I think Madison might be eligible, but they've chosen not to.
Yes, Milwaukee's the only one in the state. Madison has not made that jump.
Yeah. But, yeah,
We're
we'll always
number
be
one.
first class in our hearts, right?
That's right, I don't like to be said, oh, we're fourth class.
All right.
Huh? We have to have equal. That's right.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. Last item is, or second to last item, I should say. Next item is coming from Finance Committee, Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, before I present this one, there's one correction in the be it resolved. It has an incorrect company, BKS Excavating, listed in there where it should be the Poblaki Paving instead. So, just a typo in that one.
It's shown and highlighted on the screen,
Yeah.
the correction.
Yeah, so Tammy, if you can just make note of that.
All right, so then, with that correction in there, this is R-133 of 2023, authorizing and directing the proper city official to enter into an agreement with Poblaki Paving Corporation of West Allis for the Veterans Road Storm Sewer Replacement Project, Contract 6-2023. So moved.
There's second by Alder Jensen. Alderperson Schumacher.
Just to replace the monies to replace a culvert that runs under Veterans Road out by Stoughton Trailers into at least a much nicer, instead of a metal culvert, into a nicer cement tube structure that will handle the water movement a little bit better, a lot better probably.
All right, anything you want to add, Director Shield?
Yeah, we have a failing corrugated metal pipe that runs under Veterans Road near Stoughton Trailers. It's been failing for a number of years, and now it's really time to replace it. This will actually also replace some tributary inlets and storm sewer adjacent to it, as well as the street improvements adjacent to it. It'll be disruptive for about up to 4 weeks or so, but local traffic can be routed around it on East Street and Academy Street.
All right, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we're at the last item, which is ordinance 29 of 2023. And this one probably looks familiar. We had this at the last meeting, and then we discovered we had one typo. It should be Ward 9 instead of Ward 8. So after consulting with our legal counsel, we decided the best thing to do is just to bring it back and then reapprove it with the correction. So I would entertain a motion to do so. Pardon me?
Yep, it still says Ward 8.
Oh, so we have to change B. Good catch. All right, was somebody willing to make the motion with that change?
You might want to consult with the attorney, because I don't know that there needs to be a change to item B. It's indicating that the annexed lands was annexed as part of Ward 8. We're correcting it to make it part of Ward 9. Rick, do you?
Yeah, the Part C, I think, clarifies that. So Part B is just referencing the error. So I think the Part C is the correction. So I don't think we needed the amendment.
Okay. All right. Having heard that, somebody willing to make the motion for the, what we'd like to do, actually, it's a first reading. What we'd like to do is make a motion to waive the first reading if we could, so we can process it. Is somebody willing to do that?
Move to waive the first reading.
Okay. Second by Sherlucky. Okay. So basically, waiving the first reading, if approved, would allow us to go ahead and vote on it tonight instead of the next meeting. And it takes a 2/3 vote to waive the rules. All in favor of waiving the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion carries. So then we'd need a motion for the second reading to approve it. Motion by Jensen, is there a second?
Second. Take your pick.
Who was it? You guys want to arm wrestle for it? Second was by Sherlucky. Any discussion on the change? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Jensen, is there a second by Caravello? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries at 8:10. Thank you very much. Have a good night.